adventurers, and welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. Okay, in the last couple of episodes, I have been building my epic rogue armor for our next LARP event. If you haven't seen them yet, the playlist for it is going to be right up here. And today is going to be the culmination of that. I'm going to finish up this whole armor set. Oh, it feels like, you know, in Skyrim when you finally get like all the dragon bone armor or whatever. It's so good. If you haven't seen any of those episodes yet, I do recommend you go check them out. Not just because I really need the views and it helps, but I'm going to be using a lot of the same techniques I did to make those pieces, and I don't want it to be like super repetitive for people who watch. So yeah, if you want to follow along, definitely check out those other episodes. All right, without much further ado, let's just jump right into it and level up this skill. Okay, so the artwork we're going off of here is what Maddie made for my armor. And so far we've done the chest piece, the kind of harness area with the belt. So the last piece left to do are actually kind of the leg armor there. But then I had a thought. Man, I'm so bad at just sticking to the plan. I'm so sorry, Maddie. But I envisioned one more piece, and that's kind of like a cool looking gauntlet with a hand bit to it, you know? And I figured I could fit that in this episode too, right? I think I can. Now, I've made a bunch of bracers in the past, so I've really kind of got this down. This is a refresher for some of you who's been watching for a while, but in case you're new, really quick, in order to make a bracer really simply, you just need 3 measurements. One around the meatiest bit of your arm, where the bracer's gonna sit, another around your wrist, and then finally the distance between those 2 spots. In order to make a pattern for this, all we're gonna do is take a piece of paper and fold it in half. Then along the spine of that fold, we're gonna measure out the length that we got between those 2 points on our arm. Then on either end of that line, we're gonna put half of the circumference of both the meaty part of our arm and the smaller part. Remember, we folded that paper in half, so we only need half. So if you were like 6 inches around your wrist, you're only gonna need that to be 3 inches away from the spine. Once you have those marks in place, you just connect the 2 with this diagonal line and finish off the kind of end caps to give yourself the general shape. Then just cut that out. Just make sure you always check your paper patterns to make sure they fit exactly how you need them to. This is what we're planning everything else off of, so that needs to be right. Okay, so I have a vision for how this is gonna look, and it's gonna be pretty different from bracers we've done in the past. Rather than it being kind of one piece of leather that goes all the way around, I'm thinking there's gonna be actual like little panels o leather that are connected together by like something flexible, and then one more up here on like the back of the hand. So that template I just made is gonna be kind of the rough layout of where I want it to be. But in order to make those panels, I just went back to that template and measured it out so they'd be roughly 3 inches per panel with a 1/4 inch gap in between them. This will allow it to all be together but still kind of move and scoop around my arm how I need it to. Happy with that, I just brought those lines to the other side of the template as well, and then rounded out all of the corners to make each panel kind of what I wanted it to look like. There's no real rocket science here, I'm just doing what I think looks cool. And that's something definitely to take away whenever you do projects. Don't be afraid to play with it. If it doesn't come out nice, whatever, you're just doing a template, try something else. Doing this though, I was able to make these 3 templates here, which I used to quickly turn it into foam. I wanted that transition to be better, like I just kind of shake it off and boom, there's foam. I fumbled it real bad, guys. But we'd all just pretend it looked awesome. Now I went ahead and taped all of those panels together so I could actually put it on my arm and make sure it fit kind of how I wanted it to. Happy with that, I also cut out this little kind of square shape here, which is roughly the shape of the back of my hand. And since I know that'll work, I just went ahead and turned it into leather. Just an FYI, I'm using 7 to 8 ounce veg tan leather for this thing. Mostly because it's what I use for all the rest of it and I just kind of had it around. Now, if you saw the other builds, you'll know that I have this dope like gator print leather here that I cut to be just a little bit larger than each one of the panels. This gator print is a veg tan, which means we can dye it, we can do a whole bunch of cool stuff with it. Now, before we go ahead and stick those together, I like to do kind of everything all at once, so let's move on to what the episode was actually supposed to be about, which is actually that leg armor right there. And if you look at the art, these are dead simple. They're just kind of a plate that goes over your thigh here. To make that happen, I did kind of the same thing, just roughly laying a piece of paper right where I thought it would go, and making sure that it wouldn't cut down on the mobility of my leg before marking with my fingernails exactly where I thought the end should be. I then used a ruler to make those marks more permanent, and free-handed these lazy arcs for the top and the bottom. And after cutting that out, I really like how it lays on me. It's big enough to cover that area, but small enough that it doesn't limit my movement. I'm especially worried about kind of like behind my knee, like right where my calf meets my knee, and this little notch right here. If it's too big, then every time I try to put my foot up or crouch like a rogue like to do, it's gonna jam up into me or down onto my leg. These I also cut out of the same leather that I did with the panels. All right, now that we have all our pieces together, it's time to add on that really cool gator print. Or like, if you're going fantasy, it could be dragon scale armor. To do this is dead easy. I first start with some rough sandpaper to just give the top texture of that leather something for the glue to grab onto. Then I applied some contact adhesive to both the front of my leather panels and the back of that gator print before sticking them together to make a permanent bond. After doing that to both the gauntlet panels and the leg armor, I went back around with my razor blade and cut away any of the excess. Whenever you're doing a glue up of any kind, it's a good idea to make it a little bit larger than the piece you're gluing it to so that you can cut away all that excess, making it look perfect afterwards. All right, next, because it is roguish and of course it has to match the rest of my armor, I went ahead and dyed these things a USMC black. Of course, remembering to go back in and polish off all the residue that sits on the top once they've dried. Then I went back in and sealed all of them with some Pro Resist. This is not only going to help protect the weather while I'm outside running around the field or whatever, but it'll also give it just a nice shine. All right, so now as I said, the way I want that gauntlet to kind of work is I want there to be a material underneath it that holds everything together, but giving me a lot of flexibility. And the material I decided to use is the same really nice 2-ounce leather that I used to trim out all the other builds. This is thin, flexible, has the look I want, and generally just matches what I've been doing so far. To make this happen, I just put all of those panels of leather arranged roughly where I wanted them to, and then actually laid my arm in place to make sure that it was spaced out correctly. Now, if you're following along, you gotta pay special attention to this gap right here. Since it's gonna be kind of held in place, I'm gonna be putting something kind of around my hand to keep that hand part in place, a little back slap one. That does mean that the forearm area isn't gonna have the ability to move down any further out of your hand's way. So if it's too close up, the back of your hand is gonna continue to hit it, and that's gonna hurt. So you definitely wanna make sure there's enough of a gap there so you can freely move around. Once I liked the positioning, I went back in with an awl and just traced around each panel. This will make it really easy for me to know where to put my contact adhesive in each one of those spaces and also on the back of my panels. Then I simply stuck those suckers into place and took them over to my sewing machine to sew all around each panel. This not only looks cool, but it's gonna help make sure that they stay in place. As I've mentioned before, if you don't have a sewing machine, this isn't really a lot to have to sew, so you can definitely hand punch these. And now this thing's starting to come together, look at this. I can put it around my arm, I can move, and while it's around my arm, I take this opportunity to take that awl and mark around where my wrist bones are. Again, this is a really important movement as a human, and especially if I want to be like using a sword or whatever. So anything in this space as well, this kind of in between area here, is going to get real uncomfortable. So I want to clear all that away as much as I can. And cutting that away leaves me with this slick little space right here. Happy with that, I just went around and cut away all of the excess leather from around all of my panels. Oh my god, it's looking so slick, like a dragon samurai. I'm not gonna lie, I was starting to get really excited at this point. But then I realized we do have a bit of a problem. You see, as pretty as this stuff is, it's chrome tan leather. Chrome tan leather is called chrome tan leather because it's cured with chromium salts. And chromium salts aren't particularly good for you, so this maintaining skin contact, especially while I'm running around in a hot field all sweaty and whatever, isn't a great idea. Luckily, because of the rest of the armor build, I know that I can actually like put material on the back of that. I specifically have this really nice faux suede. It's so luxurious feeling, guys. Oh my god, it feels so nice against the skin. But not only will that make it comfortable, but it'll help put that little bit of a barrier between me and the leather there. Now, this is a rule. I don't make the rules, I just abide by them religiously. But the one thing a rogue anything has to have is just a ton of pockets and connection points. And these things are no different. So I just went ahead and sewed a big old pocket onto the fabric that I'd be using to put to the back of these things. This way I can have like a secret missive in my sleeve or like a little dagger or something. Oh, it's so cool. Now, just like with the gator print, all I did to connect these together was apply contact adhesive to the back of the leather and to the back of the fabric. Then once they cured, I simply bonded them together. Quick note, in the first build, the actual like chest armor, I used Super 77 in order to do this. And though it has been working for me just fine, and I also kind of sewed it into place so it's not going to go anywhere, one of you in the comments section noted that there's actually a different one. It's in the same kind of branding. I think it's like Super 99 or something like that. Anyways, that's got a more permanent hold than the 77, and I don't want this to go anywhere. That contact adhesive, though, that's the bee's knees right there. It's not going anywhere. All right, these are looking great. All we have to do is put our straps into place. The first of which is going to be the one I'm actually going to use to like hold that little back slappy piece to me. I'm sure it has a name. I don't care at this point. Back slappy. It says what it is. To do this, I cut this little 1/2 inch wide strip here, just long enough so it wrapped all the way around, covering my first and pinky knuckle. Then I punched holes in my little backhanding panel here to correspond to the ends of that strap, all of which I finally locked into place with some rivets. This gives me this nice little loop that holds everything into place and gives me a full range of motion without kind of losing that piece. To hold the rest of it into place, I actually had these little bits of strap left over from my earlier builds. It's a callback. I said in those episodes I'd use them, and I'm gonna. I simply placed these where I thought they would fit in, and used my hole punch to punch through all of the material. Then I locked these into place as well with my rivets. Onto the end of these straps, I just made a little hole with a slice coming down to the bottom so they'll accept a button. And the buttons I'm using is my favorite Sam Brown button. To figure out where these go, I just put the gauntlet on and pulled the straps until they were tight so I could mark where they land. Then I punched my holes and screwed those little buttons into place. This little configuration holds everything into place really easily. And again, I have completely full range of motion. Everything feels super comfortable. I am super proud of these things. Look at it. Oh my God, it's so cool. And it's got a pocket. Oh, it's awesome. All right, well, let me find something to put in my pocket. It's a paintbrush, it isn't very roguish. But I got a pocket. Oh, that's so cool. Now, some of you may be asking why I decided to go with the Sam Brown button and an attachment here, rather than like a buckle or like eyelets with lacing or whatever. You can definitely do whatever you want to do, but my reasoning for it is I never really need to change how tight this thing is generally. When I wear bracers, I usually have to make them more tight because they always want to like slide off of me this way, right? So I tighten them down as much as I can so that I can like, adjust that. But this one, thanks to this area here, it doesn't move anyways. So this is actually kind of on the looser side here. It feels more comfortable. It doesn't feel like it's rubbing against me or anything. I can wear a shirt underneath it. Like there's plenty of room to shove stuff into there. And just from wearing a lot of bracers while I've played, like I'd rather have that extra room. It's a me thing, I don't know. But look at this. Full range of motion, feels fine. Ah, it's so cool. Look at how cool they are. And I think, oh, there's something already in this pocket. Oh, it's my fume. If you haven't seen Fume yet, you've not been watching this show. I've kind of been using them a lot. And it's one of my new favorite things. It's basically just a flavored air device. Basically, the way these things work is they have a whole bunch of little flavor cores you can put inside of the middle here. And then you simply suck air through it and it actually flavors the air as it goes through. I know it sounds weird, just kind of sipping on flavored air, but it tastes really good. I'm currently rocking a raspberry lemon right here, which is friggin' fantastic. But the orange vanilla is what's up too. It's really, really good. But yeah, it's not a vape. There's no nicotine. You can use it anywhere. Not only that, but this thing is like constructed really well and super fun to play with. They made it like a fidget toy. So cool. If you're interested in trying out and want to help support this channel, definitely check out Fume. For a limited time, you can use the code SKILLTREE to get 10% off your journey pack. So head to fume.com and use the code SKILLTREE or use this QR code here to get 10% off your order today. Okay, so as awesome as these are, and which, by the way, look how fast these are to take off. Oh, that's so good. I'm sorry, after dealing with laces for years, that's amazing. But yeah, as awesome as these are, it's only one half of the build. Though for the other half, I'm gonna do largely the same thing, including adding a giant pocket, which will put them right here. Just regular old pockets. Love that. Little things. This, of course, I did exactly the same thing with the glue and stuff, sticking it right onto the back of the leather. There's a small difference here. I'm going to do the same thing I did with my leather armor and actually trim out these edges. I didn't do it with the bracers because there's not a lot of places it's gonna dig into me. Like, this isn't touching here at all, so I think I'm gonna be fine. Though I can in the future if I need to. But on these ones, aside from just the nature of like where they're gonna be, I don't want them to push into me uncomfortably. I thought it would look cool. I thought they look kind of plain without it. In order to do this, I'm gonna be using that same 2-ounce leather, which I cut into strips and took out these little triangles on either side. Those little cutouts are just gonna make it so I can cleanly make it around the radius of these corners here. Then I was just off to my sewing machine to lock them into place. I really like how clean that looks, and that extra little bit of padding really makes a difference. You do notice this little patch of leather at the top and the bottom. That's because my leather there wasn't long enough to go all the way around. So I just started from the middle of the top and brought it to the middle of the bottom and did the same thing on the other side and then just covered where they would overlap with that other piece. It not only looks really cool, but it kind of hides that messy where they butt together. Now, because I did think ahead while I was making my armor and my belt and stuff, I had a whole bunch of these just straps left over here. These are simple 8-ounce pieces of leather that were just cut into belts. Then some stitching was added to it just to make them less stretchy. 7 to 8 ounce leather really isn't thick enough to be making a belt out of. You really want something a little bit thicker than that to stop it from stretching. So to get around that, I actually just ran the sides through my sewing machine so that extra bit of like material that is the thread will stop it from stretching. Not a perfect workaround, but it's what I got. With these straps though, I just kind of put the piece of armor in place on my leg and wrapped the strap around it so I knew how long it would have to be. Remember, the top of your thigh is going to be much thicker than what it is down at the bottom near your knee. So those straps are going to be different lengths. Just saying, make sure you measure it to your leg. Don't just assume they're going to be the same. So when I was making my belt part to the whole harness, I actually left little D-rings at the bottom to act as connection points specifically to hang this armor off of. Again, I don't want stuff to slide, just like with my wrist armor here. I didn't want it to slide while I was moving around. So I cut these little straps of leather here that's going to help hold it into place. For those larger straps of leather that are going to wrap around my thigh, I simply lock those into place with a couple of rivets. I also put buttons and button holes at the end of those strips. The topmost rivets I also use to lock those little straps into place. Then I strap the whole thing to my thigh just so I can get the length of those smaller straps correct. By looping them through the D-rings and seeing how tight I want them to be, I'd learn how long the length had to be. Once I had my measurements, it's back to making button and buttonhole assembly so I can put it all together. And that fit perfectly. Now I got this little bit of armor protection here. I got friggin' pockets, which by the way, I can fit my knives into, which is fantastic. Not only that, but by not riveting this into place or sewing it into place, I have this opening between here as a connection point where I can add other things to it, like little daggers in there or something. Oh, it's so cool. So now's the moment of truth. Let's see the whole assembly together. I friggin' love this whole setup. This is the coolest little bit of armor here. It's super form-fitting and really roguish-like. 100% like something I'd see in a video game, and I'm here for it. I friggin' love it. There's just some things you make that you're like, oh, okay. And this concludes my keystone project to bring me into that next journeyman level that we're into now. I know I had started with just the top there, but I figured let's make the whole thing. It's so cool. And luckily, because I'm going to Reckoning pretty soon, I'm gonna get to wear it and run around in it and let you know what parts failed or what parts were great. So yeah, stay tuned in this space, we'll figure it out. Oh, speaking of going to LARPs, there's still some room in our Conquest camp if you want to join us. Conquest is the largest LARP in the world, held in Germany, and this year we have our own camp. If you want to join us, watch this video here or check out the links down below. And if you want to compete for a chance to go, join our Level Up LARP competition. Basically, it's a competition where you buy something from Bergsnyder, who holds this event, and somehow creatively incorporate it into your costume. We're going to be doing 2 rounds with fabulous prizes, with the first place prizes of both being free entry into Conquest. All you gotta do is get to Germany. Again, details will be in that video or links in the description below. I really hope y'all get to come. Already the community that's coming with us is so cool. I'm really having fun. Oh, speaking of communities, I want to shout out these amazing people from our Discord. Look at the stuff they are working on. This is the best community I've ever belonged to. They're super creative and supportive and just an amazing group of people. If you'd like to broaden your social circles and find other crafty, awesome people, definitely check that out. Again, description, same. All right, I think that's all I've got. I think I covered my bases. I hope you liked what we did here today. If you did, give me some of that like and love, and don't forget to subscribe so you know when I release new content. In the meantime, though, keep leveling up, you. You made it to the end screen. YouTube loves it when you do that. It's a fantastic way to support this channel. Another fantastic way to support this channel is by joining these people's noble ranks. These are our Patreon members, and we honestly can't do this without you. Absolutely huge shout out to our newest Grandmaster level patron, Dragon Designs. It is amazing. Thank you so much. That is incredible. That goes such a long way to helping us buy the materials and make this a bigger channel. Oh man, it blows my mind. All of you that support us in this way, it's just incredible, humbling. Thank you so much. If you like what we do here and want to support us, consider joining our Patreon, link in the description below. Otherwise, you can click on one of these videos that YouTube thinks you'd like, and that honestly really helps too. I'm gonna go put my armor back on. It's so cool.